The fallen leaves tell a story.
We have all had days when we thought that life is a little hard. We have had days when we just didn't know what happened to us that brought us in a state of mind where we didn't feel like ourselves anymore. Or no matter what we did, we couldn't even bring ourselves to do the smallest of tasks. After some time, we get the idea that something is wrong with us and that nothing we do can change the deep pressing feeling of dread and emptiness. We feel like there is nothing to be done about the progressing thoughts of uselessness and the impending sense of living a wasted life. This is exactly what it feels like to be hollow. To live a life not far from the bittersweet touch of nothingness. The calming thought of surrender. Although we are quickly reminded that anything has a price, everything moves away from us if we do not fight to hold ourselves together. We are presented with this concept at first in the Dark Souls games, where the correlation between becoming hollow and losing the will to live was very apparent. It is in this correlation that we find the first clue as to why Elden Ring is really about the journey towards overcoming your past self and escaping from the dark pit called depression. Of course, in Elden Ring we cannot go hollow. But do we have to? The simple absence of victory, or not being embered, is strong enough of a step towards feeling like we have failed. Like the character didn't go hollow, but we're inching towards it ourselves. It is in this moral decay that we find every failure painful. Even if we do not get punished for dying with anything more than the chance to lose some rooms if we fail to grab them on our way back to the fight. It then becomes obvious that the only way our character can become hollow is if we give up hope ourselves. If we stop playing entirely. It is this connection between our decision and the fate of our persona, our character, that brings moral consequences to the table. It makes us feel responsible for that persona. It becomes personal. Let's think about the beginning of the game. Our character that we chose to represent us, our persona, wakes up from a long sleep or a dead state. That makes me think of a saying that states, sleep is just death being shy. Whether it is sleep or death, the state from which our persona wakes is one of numbness, of dissociation from reality. The same thing that happens to us when we find ourselves in a state of severe depression. Dissociation is a natural response to keep us from experiencing the pain and heavy feelings that made us fall in that exact same depression in the first place. It is our mental immune system protecting us from ourselves. And what happens afterwards? We are being called. We are required to fulfill a quest of which we know nothing about. But it is enough for our persona to find the strength to make the first steps and bring itself into the light of day once again. That tells us of how little of a push was needed in order to give us hope. The next relevant moment is the site of the mausoleum we find ourselves in. This place is one of rest, of sanctity, of being content with what has become of you. It is a symbol of our persona becoming complacent with how things were. Using this newfound strength, we go on to exiting this place of comfort, and we are met with a world as beautiful as ever. We usually find encouraging thoughts from like-minded souls. We go on to admiring the stunning embrace of a world that once forgot us, or that we forgot in return. This moment is like magic. It makes our past feel like a distant dream, but we are shortly met with an ever-familiar, cold reality. We are thrown in an impossible fight for someone like ourselves. Just hanging from the thread of hope, we find ourselves face to face with an abomination. A creature so horrid for a first encounter that makes us wonder what sick world would give you hope just to be ripped away in such a brutal manner, so quickly after waking up from that state of numbness. We get killed and, after a moment of realization, we find ourselves on the path that was meant for us from the start. Was that encounter just a sadistic way to disillusionment? It might have been, who knows, as life often has a way to tell us what is real and not through the most harsh of challenges. We go on again, finding that the thread of hope has not been broken yet. We find a person that serves as a guide, and, with no other choice but to take to heart what he has to say, we find ourselves at the feet of a monumental task: tame a world that has brought us to its knees before and isn't afraid to do so again. This is the first part of the story of our lives, our persona's life, and we find comfort under the resting place called grace. As it is through grace that we find beauty in things, that we find the necessary respite to take a breath and summarize our past steps and plan forwards. It is with the same analogy that I bring this first video to an end, so that we may rest at the light of grace to find the strength to endure one more push towards finding our meaning and overcoming the urge to go hollow. This was the first part of this whole story, as this topic has to be split between multiple parts for the sake of keeping things fresh, and thus not to muddy the meaning of what I have to say. Until next time, I wish you find the strength to not go hollow.